Welcome to the State of the Buccaneers podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Pfefferkorn, and this is the biggest and only fan-run podcast of the East Tennessee State Buccaneers. We'll get right back to you after the tune. Welcome back to the State of the Buccaneers podcast. It's been a couple weeks since I brought you an episode. Roughly right before the Samford game, sort of that week, in between the loss to Furman and the Samford game, which we'll get into. I'm going to recap that later on in the episode. But tonight, I have a massive episode for y'all. You're not going to want to miss this one, so grab some popcorn, grab a drink of choice. A Dr. Nuff would be preferable. For all of us Northeast Tennessee people, because we have some massive news on the football recruiting front and transfer portal news. We're going to and then after that, we're going to kind of get into the up and down struggles the basketball team's been going through, high of highs and low of lows, and some other controversial opinions I have about the current state of the SoCon. I mentioned it on Twitter, so those of you tuning in, I know Coach Savage is probably going to be listening. Some controversial opinions about the SoCon ref, so you're not going to want to miss this episode tonight. Sorry if I'm off my game a little bit. It's been a long couple weeks, so I try to get these episodes to you as they come, but without further ado, we're going to get into some of the spicy news that has been coming out or surrounding the football program. Of course, Will Healy was hired back towards the end of December. He's put his staff together: Chad Staggs, not Clay Aiken, Cam Aiken. I keep wanting to say that, but Cam Aiken as OC as well. So maybe he has some good connections. But last Saturday before the Samford game, first thing I woke up at like 11, slept in a little while. I woke up, I checked Twitter, and what do I see? Some massive transfer news staring back at me. And that news was that former Michigan starter, former Michigan and Iowa starter, Cade McNamara, had committed to transfer to East Tennessee State, the Buccaneers. My Buccaneers, our Buccaneers. What a massive commit just to get that news. It didn't look real, to be completely honest. Cade McNamara, he is an experienced QB at the Power 5 level. Obviously lost out to J.J. McCarthy at Michigan, so he transferred to Iowa. He's I think he's trying to get a 7th year of playing opportunity because he played before COVID. 2019 was his freshman year, I believe. 2020. And then he got his COVID year. Then he transferred. Well, after 2022, he transferred to Iowa, and then got hurt. Hurt at Iowa, so he has a medical redshirt year. So he has COVID year, redshirt year, medical redshirt year. I'm pretty sure as well. So that's how he's going to get his 7th year playing opportunity. He was always a solid QB at Michigan. Iowa, I'm not sure how much we can take from that, his performance there. I mean, I was kind of been a grinder for any QB or offensive player, unless you're a running back or tight end or offensive lineman. I mean, those 3 positions Iowa's got on lockdown. But if you're a skill position player, a QB, it's been kind of a black hole the last several years with the Brian Fenritz offense. Kirk Fenritz runs that like 1970s grindhouse Big Ten football to a T. So can't really take too much from his performance there, and especially this last year coming off of injury. I forget what injury he had. I know he had a concussion towards the end of last year, but what was Cade? I'm gonna find out. Let's look up what Cade McNamara's injury was before he transferred to ETSU. Injury history. He's had two major knee injuries. 2021, he led Michigan to the college football playoff. He was third team All Big Ten. It's not usual. It's not a usual thing at the FCS level to say you have someone who is a quality Big Ten starter. Obviously, not the greatest QB ever, but at the FCS level, he could ball out. I mean, we've seen it with other QBs that have transferred down. Just recently at Incarnate Word, Zach Caldalza. He was kind of a burnout at A&M and Auburn, I believe, and has ended up at Incarnate Word and is balling out there. Yeah, let me look up. He had a quad injury that kept him out in 2023. So I'm excited for Cade McNamara. He was initially committed to Western Kentucky, which is where I believe Chad Staggs was defensive assistant. So maybe that connection, he had inroads there. And of course, Cam Aiken being a Clemson guy, I'm sure Clemson talked to Cade McNamara as well, kind of looked at him. I'm not sure if that's real or not, but Cade McNamara, this might be one of the probably the most notable transfer that's ever come to ETSU football. The only thing comparable I can think of is in basketball. Hunter Mosquera-Pierre coming over from Indiana. I know Hunter Mosquera-Pierre was a pretty high-profile recruit. But football, I mean, ETSU's only had football back since 2015, so the whole like transfer portal thing has kind of been born in that time period since we brought football back. And back in the day, most coaches brought in freshmen, redshirted them, developed a team. Occasionally, you get a Power 5 or G5 or whatever it was back then, cast off smaller schools, kind of those bowl, sort of get people that had issues or grade issues or something like that. But I'd say this is a steal for ETSU. This late in the portal too, getting somebody like that. We were kind of wondering, scratching our head, what was Coach Healy going to do with our QB room? And we've kind of got an answer. With this Cade McNamara, I love it. But honestly, we got some other news. At like a few days afterwards, there was last week. There was some even crazier rumors coming out that another Power 5 former starter had committed to East Tennessee State. And those rumors turned out to be true as well. So as Jacolby Criswell from UNC transferred to East Tennessee State, can share. I'll share both Cade McNamara and Jacolby Criswell's stats here. But Jacolby Criswell, he played quite a bit. He played at UNC, then he transferred to Arkansas for a year. Last year, he got quite a bit of playing time as Max Johnson got hurt early on in the season, and I think Connor Held got hurt as well. Both those players got hurt. So Criswell played a majority of UNC season, which was a disappointing season for UNC. And Mac Brown ended up getting fired, or I believe he got fired whichever. Um, but I honestly think Jacolby Criswell might be a better pickup than Cade McNamara, just simply based on injury history and the fact that Criswell is a more of a dual threat type of guy. He's a 5th-year senior guy as well. So it would actually be a 6th-year senior. So 6th and 7th-year seniors in our QB room. What a wonderful job by Will Healy to pick up these two guys this late into the portal. I'd say last season our biggest issue was consistency in the QB room. That's our number one reason why we weren't in the playoffs. That and game management. Our QB room, it was wildly all over the place. We just kind of threw whichever guy was hot out there. There wasn't really a rhyme or reason for benchings and stuff. I really appreciated Jalen King's performance. I think he got kind of thrown under the bus by Trey Lamb. I keep wanting to say Trey King, but Trey Lamb for issues that were beyond just the QB play. I think I don't know why we ever went to Geno English. I appreciate he had a couple good plays, but he clearly was not a D1, at least at the SoCon level QB, to put it mildly. Baylor Hayes played good in stretches as a walk-on, but you don't rely on freshman and sophomore walk-ons at the QB room. You gotta have that depth. I wonder why. What's his face? The other guy. Let's find ETSU Charlotte transfer. Who was it? QB. D. Dobbins Bennett. ETSU QBs. 2024 football roster. Let's go find. He was down here somewhere. Steven Johnson. We have him as well, still in the QB room. But we might honestly have the most deep room in FCS if this holds, if both Cade McNamara and Jacolby Criswell stay around for the season. Also, it was announced this week, Jalen King is coming back. He entered the transfer portal briefly. It is undecided if he is going to stay around or leave or stay and redshirt. There's just 3 options on the table for him. I believed in the potential of Jalen King. I think he's a great athlete. He had some great passes. It was clear he was going to be the starter. But he struggled a lot with turnovers. He had a very Anthony Richardson-esque game to his performance. He has the highest of highs and lowest of lows. I think that's kind of like just being at the FCS level, unless you're North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Montana State. Those 3 all had excellent QB play all year with Cam Miller, Gronkowski, and Tommy Mellett. But definitely a huge upgrade in the QB room in general. We also have freshman Jackson Bird coming in. So I'm excited about this QB room, man. It's going to be a lot better than last year. Especially last year, what's his face? The St. Francis transfer quit going in the fall camp because he lost the battle to Jalen King and just decided he didn't want to compete anymore. So, but this is I'm just continuing. This is massive news. There's tons of people reacting to this news on social media. ETSU's name is out there. We got a QB that started in the college football playoff. I don't know if he started in the playoff. I might be wrong in 2021. But a starter at one of the preemptive powers in college football, and another it's a high-profile Power 5 school in North Carolina. It's just crazy, man. When I saw that news, I was just like dumbfounded. I didn't know if it was real, and then I saw On3 tweeted it. So just some massive steals for ETSU. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see, presentation, present. I'll just do share screen. Let's start off with Cade McNamara's stats, raw stats. At Michigan, he had about, for his career, he has over 4,000 yards passing. Last year, he had 15 touchdowns. His best season was 2021 by far, going to the playoff. His freshman year in 2020, he had 5 touchdowns for 134 passer rating, 141. He didn't see much playing time in 2022 because McCarthy took over as the starting QB. Had 1 touchdown, 1 INT in cleanup duty. He transferred to Iowa then, of course. Didn't play tremendously great in the times he did play. Last year he had a 60% completion percentage. I think a lot of that 6 TD and 5 INTs. I think that a lot of that's from Iowa's ball control offense, not getting receivers open and just kind of having to convert on third downs, plus injuries. He's never been the most mobile QB, as you can see by his rushing stats. Out of Reno, Nevada. What a wild pickup. But let's see, view tab, ESPN. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. I'm going to share our next screen. Jacolby Criswell, of course, it shows he didn't have quite as impressive stats throughout his early years as McNamara. But he did have a touchdown. Didn't play much at UNC. He was behind some great guys. What's his face? Sam Howell and Drake May, both NFL QBs. Transferred to Arkansas last year, and then transferred back to UNC this year from Morrilton, Arkansas. This year he had 15 touchdowns through the air, 58% completion percentage, close to 2,500 yards, and through the ground he had 103 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Has 4 total for his career, so he has some solid rushing numbers. I would say he's a true dual threat, but he's more of a mobile guy than McNamara. So we'll see who ends up playing more. I'd say there's a high likelihood. Let's see, went to Google for that. I say there is a high likelihood we see one of these guys beat the other out in the other transfers somewhere else. We'll see how it works out. In spring camp, spring ball starts up here soon. And they are having a spring game, so I will definitely be there. Cover all things for State of the Buccaneers. Might do an in-person vlog or, on location episode of State of the Buccaneers. But yeah, just some absolutely great pickups in the QB room. So I've talked about this for about 20 minutes now, but I think all I can share, I share sentiments with every Buck fan everywhere, being fired up about this. I think this is going to bring a lot of notoriety to the school. I think this shows that our NIL is just continuing to get better as a program, showing what we're capable of as a regional power. But I wanted to get into some more of the recruiting news after the covering Cade McNamara and Jacolby Criswell. I'll kind of give my thoughts in a future episode who I think is going to win when I sort of go into a more in-depth look at spring ball. Who I think is going to win that QB battle after the spring game. But yeah, we've had a lot of other massive transfer news. The first of those, let me type this in. Let's Terran Southern. He was. We picked up a tight end from Middle Tennessee State. He didn't have much in the way of receiving stats. His name is, I believe it's Taharin Suthereth. Don't quote me on that. I'll figure it out once the season starts or once his name's pronounced. But let me look up what his record was. I believe this is what he played decent amount at Middle Tennessee State. Was from Alcoa, Tennessee, so he'll be good depth in that tight end room. We'll see how he ends up. Let me pull up the ETSU football Twitter. Go down here to the bottom. I know. Let's see what he signed. He played 32 games at Middle Tennessee State. Was named to the All-State team as a senior in high school. We got confirmation of several of the guys I talked about in the last episode. Jackson Crosby from Clemson. Would be a good pickup in a receiver room. Colin Rutland from Youngstown State. Played pretty good in high school. Isaiah Potts from Campbell. He was rated as a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. 2-star by Rivals. 3-star by 247. Let's go see what they all have on here. I'm going to keep rolling through some of these commits. D. Rutker. Let me look up D. Rutker for a minute. He was a not wide receiver, but a running back at Coastal Carolina. Demarius Rutker, 5'9", 193 pounds. That might be out of date. But he coming out of high school, he was a 3-star recruit on 3, 247 Sports and ESPN. He was leading rusher on Lakeland High School's state championship team in Florida in 2022. Didn't really play there. Keyshawn Harvey, another one, a defensive line commit from Western Kentucky. He played the last 2 seasons at Western Kentucky and was a 2-star recruit coming out of high school. They confirmed Cade McNamara has thrown for over 4,700 yards in his college career and 31 touchdown passes. Probably one of the biggest commits ever to ETSU. We have Wesley Horton, another transfer from Western Kentucky. He's a veteran offensive lineman. Had 20 games of experience. Was named to the 2024 preseason All-Conference USA 4th team by Athlon Sports. Next one, confirmed Trevor Moffitt, Gardner Webb. I discussed him in our previous episode. He was an all Big South / OVC second team linebacker. Had 65 total tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, and 5 sacks. The next commit was a guy by the name of Brian Alston, transfer from Arkansas State. Um, he was a 3-star recruit on most national services. He was ranked as the number 69 nice edge player uh, coming out of high school in the nation coming out of high school. Sorry, I got that backwards. The next commit was Ramari Javon Oggs, a defensive back from Northeast Oklahoma A&M. He played there in Southwest Baptist. He played a total of 10 games with a pair of interceptions. Another one is Kendall Williams from Carson Newman. One of my buddies that played at Carson Newman, and I had a guy I went to high school with, that coached there. They were pretty hyped up about this. They told me about it before it was going to happen, like right before he committed. But Kendall Williams from Carson Newman, he played in 35 games, had 150 tackles and 7 interceptions. So much needed help in the secondary room with both of those commitments there. Today we just got another commit through the transfer portal. It was Christopher Davis Jr., a defensive end from Georgia State. He's a veteran pass rusher with over 30 games of collegiate experience. 6'3", 245. So some great transfer portal commits. Let's see, Christopher Davis Jr. stats. DE. Let's see, I don't know what his projection is. They don't have anything on him here on ETSU's Twitter page other than where he came from. Sorry for yawning. It's been a long day. But I think that's all I have for recruiting. But I think the coaches said they might be done through the portal and recruiting. I could be wrong. But they've signed. I think they've signed a lot of these guys. Yeah, I think that's all I had. Just a massive week of recruitment news. And, of course, I think I mentioned it earlier. Jalen Keem is coming back to ETSU next year. Yeah, that's just another massive recruiting win. I think Will Healy's got some recruiting chops. Now, the true sign of a good coach is how he performs on the field. You could be a great recruiter and not have anything to show for it. People say Ryan Walters was a great recruiter in general, and he sucked it up at Purdue because he did not know how to manage a football program. So yeah, that's all the recruitment news. I do have another thing to note. The football non-conference schedule was confirmed. We, of course, open against Murray State at home on 8:30 or August the 30th. Go on the road to Tennessee on the 6th of September. Go on the road to West Georgia on the 13th and come back home on the 20th to play Elon. So I think that just confirms what I had discussed in an earlier episode. But yeah, that's all the football news I have for tonight. Massive week in recruitment. The Cade McNamara and Jacolby Criswell commitments. Those are both just massive wins for ETSU. I think there's a lot of eyes that wouldn't necessarily be on us that are now because of Will Healy's recruiting. So we'll see how it plays out on the field, but I am happy with both of them, especially considering what we had last year. And I think that's all for football. So I guess we'll move on to the basketball team, sort of their struggles as of late and the big wins they've had. Um, to transition into that, I would first like to simply ask, when was the last time ETSU had three 30-point scores in a season? It's been quite a while. I'll give you about like 5 minutes, but so far on this season, we've had three. We've had Q, of course. He's had a few massive games. Um, then we had that John Buggs masterclass against VMI. In another game we'll get into here in a minute, Jaden Seymour went absolutely bonkers from the field against Western Carolina. We'll get more into my thoughts on that and what the impact of it is truly. But yeah, we've had three 30-point scores on the year. It's longer than you think, I will say that. But I think I've gave you about enough time. The year we last had three separate 30-point scores was the 2013-14 season, which was Murray Bartow's last hurrah as ETSU head coach. Before we got to the Thorbs era, Forbes had very balanced teams generally. There's a couple highlight scores, of course. TJ Cromer going absolutely bonkers against Sanford in the SoCon tournament. Pat Good, of course. But I feel like we had a different guy every night. I think that just shows how great those teams were. You didn't really need a superstar. They just played great ball movement, great offense, great defense. Especially towards the end, 2020, you didn't really need a 30-point scorer every night. And I think that team, it might have been Lester Wilson, Rashawn Rembert, and Jalen Riley. All blasts from the past. They might have been those three as our leading scorers. Though that end of Murray Bartow's era was not a great time. Not great teams. Some good talent, but just a lot of mismanagement as a head coach, which is why he got canned after that Western loss in 2014. Yeah. I don't think A.J. Merriweather was quite the scorer yet, like he was in 2017. He had a few good games, and he broke out kind of towards mid-season, but never broke that 30-point threshold. But yeah, 2013-14 was the last time we had that. But like I said earlier, I last came to you before the Sanford game. I didn't have high hopes after that Furman loss. It kind of was a rough game. I'm going to pull up. Let me pull up I don't know where the heck it went. Let's kind of look at our scores. Division 1, go to ETSU. Schedule, just so I can discuss about it. The Sanford game, we got down, I want to say what the max was, about 5. It was a close game the whole way. Largest lead for Sanford was 8 points. It was kind of a back and forth affair. Very physical, very in the mud. ETSU's leading scorer was Kumari Peterson, of course, with 19 points. It was so crazy. ETSU came back at the end of the game, got some great ball movement. Didn't turn the ball over as much as we did against Furman, of course. Gabe Sis came up big down the stretch there at the end of that Sanford game. Once again, Karan Boyd as well. Some absolutely massive rebounds. Q made his free throws down the stretch. Let's see, where was that time? I know ETSU tied the game up at 52, I believe. And Sanford hit a absolutely bonkers three to tie it up, or to take the lead back, actually. No, tie it up. ETSU, Jaden had an all right game, not the greatest. But the moment of the game probably was the absolutely clutch Mekhi Johnson three. He played tough there at the end of the game, especially since John Buggs, who's now better as of tonight. He's played the last two games. John Buggs got hurt a minute into the game. Got hurt a minute into the game. So we were without our leading shooting guard. So Q had to pick up the slack, and Mekhi Johnson did as well. Gabe Sisk, all these guys, younger guys, Struthers, all of them play a factor, replacing Bugs' production. But ETSU snuck out with the 65-60 win, which was Sanford's first loss in like 28 home games. They had like the second longest streak in the nation, I think, at this point. Just a great team win for ETSU. Let's see. Yeah. After coming off of that massive win, I think everyone was hyped up. After that Mekhi Johnson three, just playing great as a team together. We played against Western last Wednesday. It'd been 6 straight times since we had beaten Western Carolina, which, if you know ETSU history, if you're an ETSU fan, you know what I'm talking about. But if you're not an ETSU fan, I don't know what to tell you. This is a rivalry through and through, although ETSU has dominated historically. We had a crazy stretch of games before this last losing streak, like 6-game losing streak, that started when Forbes left. Shea Oliver, Savage. We had lost 6 straight games to Western Carolina, which should never happen. Because, as a ETSU coach, I think losing to Western, especially at home, would be a death knell, essentially. But Western had a couple good players, Bernard Pelote and Cord Stansbury. Cord Stansbury, of course, transferred from Pepperdine to Western Carolina, which can be only best defined as the greatest culture shock of all time. Going from the beach in Malibu to the backwoods, rural mountain town of Cole not West Virginia, but North Carolina. ETSU just rolled from the open and jump. Well, it was kind of close in the first half. But Jaden Seymour just took over, had 34 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists. Q had 13. He didn't have the greatest shooting night. Some of our bench guys came up big down the stretch. Gabe Sisk, playing physical minutes as always. Alan Struthers, and our big men. Big men are kind of iffy, wishy-washy, if you could say. But yeah, that was a big win over Western Carolina. I think everyone expected us to carry momentum into this weekend. This is the one I'm probably the most mad about. But on Saturday, we played Chattanooga. We've struggled against Chattanooga recently. Other than that, absolutely insane comeback in Asheville. I guess Chattanooga's getting our payback to us for that one. But absolutely massive game. Could have tied up or got at least a share of the SoCon lead if we had beaten Chattanooga. But an absolutely rocking Freedom Hall, packed crowd. People were coming out in droves. Of course, it's our greatest rivalry, Chattanooga, the Mocs. I don't think very many people around here like the Mocs unless you went to school there. But yeah, it was a rough game, rough watch, very ugly first half. The Bucs got out on a roll. Q, John, just everyone was rolling. There's some absolutely insane dunks by Jaden Seymour. Seymour had 22, Q had 22. But the offense stagnated. We let UTC take the lead right before halftime, and second half was just a mess. There was a lot of ref ball being played, a lot of ticky-tack on our end, and a lot of shoving on Chattanooga's end. This is where I'm going to get into my rant about the SoCon ref, quality of SoCon refs. There's no consistency. One call is a foul on one end, and it's a two-hand, like just a breathe, like someone straight up, they call a foul. Then on the opposite end, it don't matter which team. I think ETSU's been a victim of it a bunch. But if you just like breathe on somebody, if you just wave a hand, poke a ball loose, it's immediately a foul on ETSU. And I can't call these refs out enough. I'm not sure their names. I don't know if Bill Hess is still on the crew, or not Bill Hess, but Carl Hess. That guy was an absolute travesty, especially 2017, or I believe it was 2017. It might have been it was 2016. Yeah, it was 2016. Forbes' first year. Absolutely ridiculous call on that Cromer 3. But there are several give me 50-50 balls. Every single one of them went to Chattanooga, plus the ticky-tack crap, plus playing horrible in the second half. We lost all momentum. Just didn't like our body language. So we need to find answers for that. I don't know. We really should have beat Chattanooga. Really should have beat Wofford. Heck, we should have beat Furman at their place. But these losses are starting to add up. If you have a grievance with SoCon ref, tweet at Michael Cross. Tweet. Don't send threatening letters or anything like that to the refs. I do not endorse that type of behavior on this podcast, but do criticize, do keep the discussion flowing freely. ETSU, they just didn't perform in the second half, and what a disappointing result for a crowd that showed out. I think the Tri-Cities are ready to support this team, but it's losses like that that lose us casuals, lose us the core fan base too. If we lose to our rivals on a normal basis, it's been a few years since we beat Chattanooga too. Well, in a regular season game. But just a ugly game. I'll chalk it up as a loss. But we really should have had that one. Had that one in the bag offensively. We just didn't perform well. But yeah, I was going to say the next game was tonight against UNC Greensboro. Once again, it was the Q show and watch everyone else stand till, John Buggs got heated up. He had a lot of tough shots. Him and Q both dominated the game, 22 points and 14 rebounds. But Jaden Seymour had an absolute all-time stinker. He ended up with 9 points and 7 rebounds, but it's because he got 9 free throws, influenced heavily by that three-pointer foul. I'm still unsure if it was or not. But yeah, Jaden Seymour, he have his typical production. This is an all-brown bad team shooting performance. Where our defensive intensity was lacking against Chattanooga, our offense lacked against UNC Greensboro. Yeah, just a rough loss all around for ETSU. UNC Greensboro, they had a couple guards that were just like otherworldly. I'm not sure if they're going to the NBA, but if they are, they will do good. They will do good. Sorry about the yawns. I'm starting to get tired. But yeah, just another game where we shot ourselves in the foot with turnovers. And the foul calls didn't add up as soon as they should have. Yeah, just a rough loss tonight. It puts us 2 games back. Well, actually 3 games back of the SoCon lead at the current moment. We got Sanford, Chattanooga. Those 2 are looking like the top dogs. You got Furman, UNCG, and Furman right behind them. Chattanooga, ETSU is about a 5th or a 6th. Mercer a little further down. And we'll actually put VMI above Mercer at this point. They've had 3 straight conference wins over pretty tough teams in conference. So I'm kind of scared when we go to VMI's Cadet Hall if the players will play within their rhythm or play outside of what they're taught. But yeah, it is a tough losses for Buccaneer fans. I wasn't too happy. And the refs deserve a beating, especially the Chattanooga game. I know Savage has been on them all year, especially like when people were getting hurt, people were getting shoved and they don't call it on one end. But the other end, you fall into somebody and it's head contact. Yeah, just a terrible rule all around. I think that's all I wanted to have. I think that's it. Yeah, tough defensive struggles. One night's a defensive struggle, and then the next it's an offensive struggle. It's kind of the balance of college basketball. Of course, Murray Peterson has been lighting it on fire. He's actually just one of 3 Division I players with at least 360 points, 89 rebounds, and 88 assists. I know that's an arbitrary number, but he's just lighting it up for us. He's going to be one of our better board things. I don't even know what those are. But yeah, it's a tough loss. This weekend, ETSU plays Furman at home. I will unfortunately not be there. I will be out of town for the Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium / going to a Wake Forest game. So we'll see how fun that is. Go see our old pal Steve Forbes at Wake. But yeah, that's about all I wanted on the basketball team. Oh yeah, and Jaden Seymour got SoCon Player of the Week last week for that absolutely insane performance on Wednesday and Saturday. He had a pretty good performance as well. But he had a bad one tonight. Contributed to the loss. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to discuss. Oh yeah, 2 other notes. Kurt Lewis is now no longer with the team. That kind of hurt us against Sanford. Our guard depth was paper thin against them. You had him, and then of course John Bugs out for the game, so that kind of almost screwed us over there. But yeah, let me think. Is there anything else on the agenda? Yes. Let me look at what I got. Just tough losses. Hopefully we can get Furman at home, but I will unfortunately not be there. Shout out Steve Forbes. Let's see. We all have our games coming up on national TV. Well, that just won against home against UNC Greensboro, but yeah. The next discussion topic I wanted to talk about was the women's team. I haven't followed them too much. I know they've been up and down in conference play thus far. They beat they beat Mercer and they beat Sanford. However, lost to Chattanooga, Mercer, and Western. So I'm not sure what I should do there, but yeah, the women's team. Hopefully, they can get it turned around and get an NCAA tournament appearance. I know it's been kind of an up and down year for them. I think Coach Mock Brown might have almost left at one point, but it's worked out well for. Let's see. I think that is all I have for the women's team. So yeah, ETSU athletics. What a massive week! All those games, the last of massive 2 weeks. All those games out there. ETSU's won some and lost some. Kind of been a roller coaster ride in SoCon play. I know UNCG and Sanford are tied for first now. And Chat right behind them. We kind of fumbled the bag since we're now at 5-4. I think that's about all I have for tonight. Before I leave, I just wanted to plug some stuff. Go subscribe to the Sectator Media YouTube channel and follow Sectator Media on Twitter, as well as the One Shining Moment podcast. Me and my buddy Travis, Will, William Luke, and Matt, I forget his last name. A guy named Matt, we all just sit down on a Friday and Saturday or Sunday night and just recap the games. We've got back going these past couple weeks, so it's been fun to talk some ball with them. Go check that out. I'm not sure if we'll have one out this Friday or not, because we're both going to be heading towards the clash. And Purdue and Indiana are playing a game. But yeah, go check that out. Go subscribe. I tweet about it all the time. Another thing, I had mentioned my film podcast. We're getting closer to getting some details on that. I'm getting closer. I just need to get everything set up, everything taken care of, and then we'll be good. I just wanted to say, go donate to Bucs for Good, and help out our student athletes and bring in new student athletes. Another thing I wanted to note, I finally found the script box hat at Alumni Hall. Had a gift card, so I bought it. New shirt as well. Those on Twitter have seen it as well. But yeah, that's all I have for tonight. It was a pretty big episode. The Cade McNamara and Jacolby Criswell, that took up a good portion of the episode. Sorry if I've been zoning in and out here towards the end. Trying not to fall asleep. I have had a long day. But yeah. I think that's all I wanted to say. But thank you all once again for tuning in. to State of the Buccaneers. Hopefully you aren't too sad tonight, and give this podcast a shout out. Recommend it to your friends, to your family. Help get me more people on this podcast. If you want to be on, you're more than welcome to come on. That is exempt from a few select people, but those people already know who they are, at least on Twitter. But tonight's been a fun episode, and I guess I'll sign off for the night. Godspeed, go Bucs. Y'all have a good night, and I'll catch you next time.